All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about converting decimals to fractions. That means we've got a decimal and we want to turn it into a fraction. Before we can really talk about that, we want to make sure we're really clear on place value. Place value is important for both decimals to fractions and also going the other way. So what I mean by place value is, let's say you have the number 0.123, or most math teachers want you to call that 123 thousandths, right? So we've got our tenths right here. The 1 stands for our tenths. The 2 stands for the hundredths. So I'm going to put a little arrow right there, and we'll call that the hundredths. So I'm trying to write small in there. And then finally the 3, which represents the thousandths place value. So we've got tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. If we wanted to think about this, we could think about this kind of as like, that number would be 1/10. If you have 2 digits after the decimal point, you could kind of consider that 12 hundredths. And if you had 3 digits after the decimal point, you could call that 123 thousandths. So if you can think of the place value, you can turn any decimal into a fraction. It's really pretty straightforward. So for example, if you had the number 0.1 or 1/10, you simply just read it 1/10, think of that place value, and you would write it as 1/10. If you had something like 2/10, 0.2. Again, we just read it, thinking of the place value 2/10. And then we do have to make sure we simplify. Always simplify your fractions at the end, divided by 2, divided by 2. So the simplified form would be 1/5. Okay, so 0.2 or 2/10 is the same as 1/5. If you had something like 0.25, you're going to read it. Now it's 2 digits, so remember 2 digits means you're talking hundredths. So this would mean 25 hundredths. So then I would simply write 25 over 100. I would always want to simplify my work, divide those both by 25. And that gives us 1/4. Now be careful, because there can also be times where, let's say you had something like 0.08. Right? It's only one number, but it is 2 digits over. So when you read that, you're on the second place value, that's hundredths, 8 hundredths. So then you would write it as follows: 8 100ths. And then you would simplify, divide by 4, divide by 4. And that gives me, 2 25ths. Okay, so that's how we would turn that decimal into a fraction. I'll do one example with thousandths. So let's say you had 0.203 or 203 thousandths, because it's 3 digits over. So I'd write 203 thousandths. In this case, I cannot simplify, so this would be my final answer. And then the very last one I'll just do for you is, let's say you had something with a whole number in it. So if you had something like 2 4/10. If you had 2 4/10, all you got to do is write 2 as your whole number and then 4/10. So again, it really just comes down to reading the place value, divided by 2, divided by 2. That gives me 2 2/5 as the final simplified form. So decimals to fractions, if you can read it, you can write it, and then you just simplify.